Howdy ho guys, and welcome to another Bojanian vlog. Hope you guys are well. I've had a very interesting weekend. I was actually at the Infinite Man Summit, which was something that was hosted by a really cool dude called Sasha. And also I met my mentor there. I might put a picture up of him and me there, like I think it was a bit kind of like what's the word? I was a bit starstruck, basically. I think I don't know if I kind of overreacted a bit. Or I don't know, but anyway, yeah. I had an interesting weekend, and because of this weekend, like, I had a realization, as always, that I wanted to share in this vlog entry, which was essentially the idea, or rather the question that we can pose ourselves, which is, are we willing to die for love? And I know this sounds like a very kind of like emo topic already, but like essentially, when we face adversity in life, when we face situations that put us out of our comfort zone, that challenge us and essentially give us a message that, like, we are not enough, even if that external stimulus is meant to help us, push us to grow. Like, we are ultimately met with a choice, or rather, like, we may experience feelings of I am not enough. Like, who I am is not valuable, or adequate, or interesting. And we can get bogged down by these feelings, right? But it always comes to a choice of ours, which is, are we willing to die for our love? And, like, basically, I want to get into this. Basically, this is the topic of today's talk. So essentially, I'll give a bit of background as to why I had this realization. So I went to this event over the weekend, and it was a very interesting experience. Like, I learned a lot. I met a lot of cool people, and it was relieving to kind of get to know these people, and then to realize that they had the same struggles as I do, which is essentially to do something in life that they align with, and to move away from a life that doesn't fulfill them. And there's a lot of pain and uncertainty surrounding that, right? And it was kind of relieving to see that, right? But nonetheless, if you ever go to one of these kinds of events, personal development, business, the whole idea is to basically pick you up and help you grow, right? But the process of growth is not a very pleasant one, let's just say, right? Because it's not, you essentially, it's like a wake-up call. That's how this weekend felt to me. Like, it was like a massive kind of like, wake the fuck up, right? And aside from learning what I did, and like having like a clearer idea of how I could move forwards, and a lot of that like came as very terrifying. It's just like, hey, this, like, so many ideas coming at me, like, hey, this is what works now, you should try this, the world is changing, so you need to adapt. And like, and you see like all of these inspirational people, all of these strong people, and it was the Infinite Man Summit. So like, there was a lot of masculinity there, let's just say, and like it was quite intimidating, honestly, but, and there was actually a point where like I was like, should I keep going to this, right? Like, because it was 3 days, right? But like after the first and the second day, like I was like, should I keep going to this? Ultimately I went to all 3 days, right? But like when I was met with that, like I don't know if anyone watching this like has that experience where like you might have gone to something like this, or you may have met some group of people and they are more successful, like they are ahead of you, and like the whole premise is that like you're kind of there because you want to learn from them, because you want to grow, but then after the initial exposure to them, like you feel like crap basically. You're like, oh man, like this is, I don't know, man, this is hard, like so much information, and like it's so intimidating being around these people because like, they seem to have everything together, and like they don't seem to have any room in their lives for weakness, and like I feel like a weak person, like being like kind of inferior to them, and it's like that kind of feeling was what I had to face, over this weekend. And I have to say that like some interesting insights dropped into my consciousness, which is essentially along the lines of things I've talked about, and like the kind of themes that I espouse, or rather the themes that I support in my own life. And that is, well, let me just kind of, I know this is a long intro, but like let me just kind of also add to that, in saying something like that, right, or what I'm about to talk about, like I am not a master at it. Far from it. I suck at it, honestly. Like I'm scared. Like I don't know, like if I was actually faced with a situation that was, that where I had to choose between like my survival or my values, I don't know if I could make that decision, honestly. Like I don't know, So I'm not just gonna sit here and be like, hey, fucking, grow a pair of balls, because like I get it, like, or rather I empathize with everyone in the situation, I know this, although this is my experience and I feel it the strongest because obviously I am me, right? I also want to respect everyone else who's on this journey, because it's not easy. And like, if you resonate with what I talk about in these entries, then you're probably like similar to myself, like empathetic, sensitive, a bit softer than like your typical like entrepreneur, let's say, But so you reach the point, right, where you launch yourself into situations because you know that you need to be on your path, right? You need, like, you're sick of like being stuck in the same place, feeling pain, essentially, feeling depressed, being around people that you just can't connect with. You tried, but whatever you do, like you can't see yourself connecting with these people, and like it frustrates the fuck out of you because like that they have the same seed of potential that you do. It's just that like they just can't see the same thing that you can for some reason. And so like you recognize, okay, I need to do something with my life. I need to support my values in my heart because no one else will if I don't, right? And so like you go out there and you expose yourself because like again, like you will get to a point where you have no choice, essentially. That's what happened in my experience. It's like I was sitting here making videos and like feeling all high and mighty about the ideas I have, but then it came to a point where I was like, well, my life hasn't changed, and it's great having this ideal of where you think you want to be. You want to meet the ideal group of people, you want to have the ideal career, but like you quickly learn well, quickly, I say quickly, but like in my case, like it wasn't very quick at all, but like it took years to realize this, which is you gotta take action, even if like the ideal action is not there, because maybe the ideal action or the ideal opportunity is never going to present itself if you just sit around and wait for it, right? And so you go out there and essentially you get challenged, like you face your fears that you've always had. For example, like I know that I have always felt like too sensitive, too nice, too naive, uninteresting to people who are successful, because like why would they be interested in someone like me? I'm not necessarily ambitious, I'm not aggressive, like I don't have the same degree of like thirst for knowledge and that kind of thing as they do, so why would they find me interesting? Like all I know I can do, and this kind of will lead into my point, is like the only thing that I know that I can maybe provide value in is my authenticity, my openness, my emotional intelligence. And I say that, but like sometimes like I'm not necessarily emotionally resilient, but I would say that I'm emotionally intelligent, but yeah, nevertheless, like you go out there and like you meet these aggressive people, let's say, if you're like me and you're sensitive and you're introverted and you're quiet and you're gentle and mild-mannered, you go out and you meet these people and you will inevitably feel that fear and that pain, because like when you're in the presence of these people, like you almost feel like you can't get a word in, because they have so many ideas and ambitions, and like they talk, they tell you so many techniques, and you're like, I feel so unworthy right now. Like I feel so inadequate. Like I don't even want to talk to this person. Like I met Steve Pavlina, and like it's a shame I couldn't say this to his face. But like he was my first mentor. I met him, but like, and I couldn't talk to him properly because I was scared. I was like, what possibly could Steve Pavlina, who is so accomplished, who is so aligned with his own life purpose, possibly want from me? And I went into it with the idea that, maybe I'll just be authentic, right? But I guess ultimately, like, I tried my best, I tried to be, but like, it's still, like I made an entry about, we all have ego. It's like, that you just have to be vulnerable and authentic to people. And like, that's the best bet you have, because like, people know when you're faking. You know when you're faking, right? But like, sometimes you just can't help because you're just so fucking scared, But anyway, like when you're faced with this and the aftermath of this, you kind of have a choice, right? And I don't know if this is different for other people. I'm just speaking for my kind of person, which is like sensitive, particularly if you're male. Obviously me being a sensitive male, I can talk to you about this as someone who has that experience. But like, you can either become more authentic with yourself and more honest with yourself, or you can run away, basically. Right. And typically, if you're sensitive, right, male or female, but mostly male, because we just have that kind of expectation, we have to be strong and forthright, in how we present ourselves. But like, like, we because we experience the contrast of being around that kind of person. For example, I'm just using this event, of course, as an illustration for for this, what I'm trying to say, which I know I should get to the point, I guess, but like, yeah, so like you have a choice. You know, you can either run away and escape, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Again, like I want to approach this in the most resourceful and constructive way possible, because like, and optimistic, right? Because there is a lot of dark stuff involved with this, because you know there's nothing. You could argue that there's nothing pleasant about facing your own fear, like, because it's like it's the most sobering thing you like ever to face your own fear. It's like to face your own darkness and your own fear, your own fear of how petty and like inadequate you feel, and like all of that stuff, and like you don't want other people to see that shit, like that is what causes you to feel like to be so like challenged when you're around, for example, like people who are ahead of you, or people you feel that you should make a good impression on. That's ego. That's what I was talking about in that entry, right? But so the other thing you can do, right, is to become more authentic, right? And if you are like me, your authenticity is about, well, it is authenticity. It is vulnerability. More specifically, the only thing that you can offer, and like you realize this when you have what I described as an egoic meltdown. If you haven't watched that video, I highly encourage you to watch it, because you might relate to it, or it might be helpful, or it might be entertaining even. It might satiate your curiosity about me, or about whatever, right? But like, yeah, like when you're faced with that kind of pressure and that kind of stress, when you start to expose yourself to the world and stop and come out of hiding, which in my case happened out of desperation as well, out of like my ego shattering. But like, you can choose to become more vulnerable, because like the thing that holds us back and initially causes us to always just run away is the fear that if we are authentic, it will mean something bad for us. But the beauty of authenticity is that it is empowering. It is a strength that we don't immediately recognize within us, right? Because like there's so much shit in the way, like there's so much fear, and like, oh man, like this person is not going to find me interesting. Like, I don't know how to talk to this person in a way that like will make a good impression, and there's all of this ego stuff, right? Which is merely just the way that we were brought up, essentially, right? But there comes a point where you can choose to just let the world steamroll you, essentially. For example, you meet all of these successful people, all of these ambitious people, and like you feel as though you could never match up to their ambition or their like the kind of passion that they have towards what they do, right? And you feel inadequate, and you feel that your interests are childish or like immature or not on their level, right? And when you feel that, the fear of that arising, what you can do is to be like, and this is only something that you can get to if you actually have the experience, right? And like I know what it's like. I'm like a traditional escapist. Taking action is one of my biggest challenges, right? Putting myself out there. But when you get to a stage of like basically your ego breaks down, because like like the pain of inaction is one articulation. You know, I think that's from Jeffy from Real Social Dynamics. But like, when the point at which the pain of inaction, this is a very, very mechanical way of looking at it, right? A very cold way, but like, when the pain of inaction becomes too great, that's when like you are motivated to do the very thing that scared you the most initially, right? But you do have to put yourself out there and essentially be challenged by these people, and to risk having them see you as exactly who you think you are. Inadequate, not feeling like you're worthy, not having confidence, not having any skills, not having anything that might be of interest to them. You know, you have to risk them seeing that. And to have that fight, that really dirty fight where your ego is trying to pretend that you do have those things, or trying to like not let that person see that side of you, right? And when you go through that, that's absolutely fine. You know, like I essentially went through it this weekend, and I don't blame myself. Like, I'm not going to chastise myself over it. But there is the lesson of like, when you do experience those feelings, you experience that like really painful internal clash within you, where like, you know, like you feel as though like, yeah, you know, you're not enough, and like you want to beat yourself up about it. Here's another perspective. You know, like, are you going to let that feeling conquer you, and for you to run away like you always have? Or are you going to decide, you know what? All I have is my authenticity. All I have is who I am, what I currently have in terms of possessions, knowledge, and skills. All I have is the interest I have right now. And maybe if that's not going to impress someone, maybe it's not worth me worrying so much about it anymore. Maybe that is the thing that I have to champion in my life. Even if like I go out and I meet people, and even if they don't say it explicitly, they're probably thinking this person isn't interesting to them, or isn't ambitious enough, or isn't worth their time. But that's all you have, maybe. You know, all you have is just that desire within you to be open, and for that to be okay. Maybe all that is available to you is your love for like video games and quaint little spirituality and feelings, and whatever thing that you love that is like a guilty pleasure of yours, that like you might consider a successful person or someone ahead of you would judge as not being worth their time. But when you find yourself in that situation, like, and you are faced with like, oh, like, you know, this person, like, maybe this person is never going to appreciate me. Maybe they will never appreciate me. Maybe I will never be accepted by the world. And you face that, you face the fear behind that, and you face the internal dissonance that you feel, like the internal like pain. Let's be honest, it's just pain, you know. It's like dark, menacing, pure fear. The kind of fear that you can't escape from. The kind of fear, like, yeah, you can't run away from. And you try, and in, as sensitive people, all our lives, we try to run away from it. We try to run away from it. We find this solution. We do this thing. We get addicted to this thing, right? And like, and it's this game of cat and mouse for us, right? But like, you get to a point, particularly when, you know, when you decide, okay, like, I have no choice. You know, I have to go out into the world and see what happens. Because like, trying to hide and escape and stay in one place isn't really helping me anymore. You know, going to a shitty job is not fulfilling me anymore. And like, if anything, like, you know, it just makes me like, it just gets me more, like one more day closer to my death. You know. And so you put yourself out there and you feel that you know, oh shit, people are finally going to see how fucking dysfunctional I am, how useless I am, you know, how little confidence and self-esteem I have, you know, and it's like that. I don't have to explain this. I don't have to describe this to you, right? Fucking scary, right? Fucking scary, like not describable in words. And it makes you feel like you're alone and no one understands like what it is like to be you. No one else understands what it is like to be you and the pain that you're in. And no one else can relate to that. You know? And yet, when we experience that enough times, there's a kind of almost magical moment where we're like, you know what? Hey, that shit fucking hurt. It hurts me daily. But this is all I am. This is all I am. Flaws in everything. And maybe I want to share that. Because the thing I've done all along is not share that. And to try and be, you know, a stoic. To try and keep everything to myself. To bottle everything inside. Because no one else understands and no one else can relate to me. Maybe it's time for me to finally reveal that to the world. Because it's all I have. You know, all I have are my interests and my flaws. All I have is my authenticity. You know, warts and all. All I have is my love, right? And this leads into essentially what I mean. This is dying for love, you know, the idea I'm about to talk about, is essentially an extension of that, right? Because, okay, this applies particularly to men, you know, I don't know, it might apply to women as well, but like, you're not the societal role model of like an aggressive alpha male. You're not, you're like, you might have some traits that you might think are quite alpha, and that's fine, you know, like, I don't think I'm a particularly weak person, but like, in some areas, you know, like, you know, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, but like, in some areas, like, I really don't see myself as being like a model alpha male. And the thing is, though, like, I am open to developing those and possibly becoming more alpha, but like, and that is always something like that's life, right? You know, you like, sometimes like you have to I'm about to make up like an analogy or a metaphor or something, but like, you have to smell the fart after you've put it into the jar. Let's just say, you know, that's like a cute little way of articulating. But like, sometimes you think that, you know, you're not going to do one thing and then it's pointless. Like, for example, if you're a sensitive male, and you get to a point where, like, you know what, I'm just going to own myself, right? You know, I'm not going to try to be all of these, like, I'm not going to try to be like aggressive and like seem as though I'm alpha anymore. I'm just going to own my sensitivity and like let that be my strength, right? And that is empowering, right? But like, sometimes but you're still going to be put into situations where like you're around alpha males, for example, who will challenge you to be aggressive, right? And there's nothing wrong, or rather, like, you know, you will experience, you know, what, like, being challenged and like having the aggressive side of you being pulled out. You know, that's it's okay, you know, honestly. But like, my message of my perspective of dying for love is essentially, when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to the absolute bottom, you can choose love. You can choose weakness. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can go out and go to some seminar that teaches you to be more of a man and like be exposed by all of these men who are quite masculine, right? And offer yourself to try some of the manly challenges that they set out for you. Approaching women on the street. You know, practicing martial arts, you know, sparring, business related stuff, right? You know, you're almost kind of like, you know, like, what can you do? You know, like sometimes doing that is in your best interest. You know, I'll just put it like that, like in like an objective way. You know, sometimes like, you know, like maybe you don't, it scares the shit out of you, but like maybe like you're like, well, maybe learning to defend myself wouldn't be such a bad thing. You know, like it would mean that I would feel less fear. You know, like it would keep me healthy. You know, it would challenge me so that like, you know, I'm not like, oh, like, you know, like I could handle, like, to have the knowledge that I could handle things, or have the capacity to respond to a stressful situation if I needed to, right? You know, but when push comes to shove, when it gets to the very end of things, you know, you can choose love. And when I say you can choose to die for love, I mean there is always the last resort. And putting it that way is like so weird, you know, it sounds so stupid and like fearful and like weird, but like it's more of a, think of it as like a, you know, like a last nice little surprise. The thing that you can do when everything else fails, that will be like, you know, your trump card. You know, think of it like that, right? Is you can die for love. And again, you know, it sounds, it's really like, it sounds really brutal when I say it like that. It sounds like really like kind of die for love, man. But no, all I mean by that is that like, love will always be your greatest strength. Always. You know, making people smile will always be your greatest strength. Doing something that fills you with peace and love will always be your greatest strength. Forgiveness will always be your greatest strength. Surrender and surrender, you know, surrendering to whatever situation and then letting go. That is your greatest strength. You know, I hope I'm explaining this well, because it's very much an emotional thing. It's like, yes, you know, like we're all, particularly men, right? This is why I say that, you know, men will, this really mostly applies to men, but like we as men, you know, yes, we are born here to fight. We are born here to be challenged, and we're born here to grow strong. That's just how the male masculine journey is. And you have you have to a degree become part of that journey. You have to. You know. And I say have to, but like it's just like, well, it's, yeah, you know, it's just something that men do, you know, it's in their nature. Like, you know, it's what people expect of us, is to be strong and to challenge ourselves and to fight for what we believe in, you know, when it's necessary, right? You know, and it's great to do that, but like, just know that when things get a bit too close for comfort, when things get a bit too far, you always have love there. You can despite, I don't know, building a business or like learning to fight or whatever and getting stronger, but like ultimately, if your weakness is going to shine through anyway, own it, surrender. And like that's like, it sounds like a command when I say, but it's not. It's your choice. It's your power. It's your secret ability. Let's just say, it's the gift that you were given as a sensitive person. Is that even though we are all on a journey where like occasionally we have to fight and challenge ourselves and to like think about success and survival and all of that stuff, the gift that we were given as sensitive people, sensitive males, sensitive females, is the gift of love and surrender and innocence and letting go. That is always our strength, So, yeah, the next time you find yourself feeling inadequate, facing this with a situation where you feel like you have nowhere to run and you can't breathe and no one understands you, and you're in the grasp of like some dark, inescapable darkness and fear, you feel like you have nowhere else, that no one is coming to rescue you, that you're alone, that you're going to die essentially. The next time you feel that pitch black fear and isolation, have a think about this. If anything, my greatest wish for you, I know I'm teaching this, but my greatest wish for you is for you to come to this realization on your own, because it's so powerful and serene, and beautiful for you to realize that I feel so much pain, and yet, you know what? That pain, all it's doing is burning me alive, but the result of that is that I see my authenticity, I see my vulnerability, and I become a naked babe. As funny as that sounds, right? Like, I become the vessel, through which life flows, through which sacrifices are made, through which other people find, their shelter. Is it that someone is dominating you? It probably is initially, and it's gonna fucking suck, and you want to punch the guy's face, or like, take revenge or whatever, right? But like, and that's fine, that's the journey, particularly as men, we're here to fight, like, it's okay for you to do that, but like, at the same time, is it domination? Is the other person dominating you? And that is hurting you and making you less of a person and a divine being? Or is it actually your service to not only that person, but to divine source also? Think about it. Well, don't really think about it. Again, it's more of a feeling thing, it's like when you are burnt and ripped apart by life circumstances, by fear, by pain, by suffering, by not having anywhere to go. That's when you realize that, like, your gift of being that vulnerable, sensitive person, that is a gift to the world. And, you become power. You become peace. You become divine. Anyway, it's a perspective, right? I know I'm getting a bit deep with it, but that's only because I'm trying to illustrate it to you, right? But like, of course, life is not just like, thinking like that, thinking to extremes, but like, life is also about the journey, life is also about living and all of the small things we do on a daily basis, but like, life is multi-dimensional, but this is a perspective that, you will adopt the more that life rips you open. As gruesome as that sounds, but like, it's like, yeah, the more that you experience your pain and your fear, and you go out there, and you kind of, the danger of being seen increases, and the actual incidence of you being seen increases. You can use that, because I know that you're a conscious person. Like, if you're watching this, like, I know you're a fucking conscious person. I know you feel things until you fucking, like, until it fucking grips you around the neck and you can't breathe. I know, like, you're a highly sensitive, highly conscious person. And so, if you take that consciousness and that sensitivity out into the world, and you let, essentially, the world break you open and suffocate you with fear and pain, the more that you will emerge knowing your true self and your true role and your true power and true gifts that you are given in your form, in your present form, in your present identity. And that's kind of comforting, right? Because then, like, if you know, like, your true strength of being someone who just surrenders and loves, in the midst of all this fear and the ego, trying to control life, you're the one who can surrender to love, because that is your gift, that is your natural strength, right? Some people can't do that shit. All of the aggressive people, like, they can't surrender, and that's why they're so dominant, right? And yes, you can, again, just again reiterating this, because just trying to illustrate this as best as I can, but like, you can engage them in that on that level where, like, you kind of butt heads with them and, like, grow stronger in that way, and that's fine. Some people, that's something you can do, in life, and it's great, becoming strong in that way, or at least learning to be strong in that way. But you can be the one who teaches the world how to surrender, how to choose love just like that, and to realize yourself and to accept yourself with all of your flaws, and to find and feel compassion for that. That is your strength. As I feel it in myself, I know you feel it in yourself too. You may not feel it until, in my case, you may not feel it until, like, someone destroys your sense of self-worth. Sometimes, a lot of the times inadvertently, right? And you just take a walk by something like, fuck, I'm fucking worthless. But it's those moments where, like, you will discover more and more of your true essence. It's great. So cool. Anyway, my entries have been long recently, but like, I try my best to articulate my points as well as I can, and yeah, I love making these vlogs. What can I say? Or at least it's an expression of who I am, and I hope that my message helps you. And if it doesn't, I apologize, but like, and I respect that. So anyway, that's my message for today. Like, essentially, yeah, so like, I am here. I'm one of you. There are other people who are here, who are also part of the same tribe of sensitive, vulnerable, conscious people. The people who are dominated. We are here, and we exist together. And if you know that, and you have the courage to step out there and be essentially ripped apart and to emerge with a greater sense of your true essence and true role here and true strength, and to own that, that is fucking powerful. That is like so beautiful, so serene. You know, you are you, with all of your weird flaws and weird idiosyncrasies, you know, and weird interests, video games, you know, that is your strength. And I'm here with you, together, and we will face this world together. So cool. I hope you guys found this entry insightful or helpful. And if you did, like, please leave me a comment, you know, I'd appreciate it. So cool. Thank you for listening and watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next entry. Peace out, guys. I hope you're having a great day, and I love you, and all the best towards the future. Peace out, guys. Yeah!